Hey, this is Sky. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm in the shop, taking care of business, getting things done bright and early. Anybody out there want coaching or mentoring, go to my website, skyazrael.com. I always throw the link below. Let's talk about being single, singleness. This is really about intrapersonal relationships instead of interpersonal relationships, relationships with others. We're talking about intrapersonal relationships, relationships with ourselves. And this is where we start. If you want to have successful relationships with others in the workplace, with your friends, with your loved ones, your wife, your kids, if you want those relationships to be successful, you're going to have to learn about this, about singleness, about intrapersonal relationships, a relationship with yourself. In fact, the most important pursuit that you can have in life is to be single and to explore your singleness. Singleness is the foundation of all relationships. Singleness determines the quality of all relationships. You can't truly love others until you love yourself. If you don't love yourself, you may hate yourself. You may think that you're a bad person, a piece of shit, a loser. You are unable to love anyone else in that mind frame. In that weakened, sorry state, you cannot give love to others. You don't have it in you. No, what you're doing is attaching to others like a wounded bird for survival reasons. And that's not love. That's manipulation. Now you have to obviously get to know yourself. And you want to get to know your strengths so you can utilize your strengths, but you want to be able to get to know your weaknesses, explore your weaknesses, recognize your weaknesses. Because if you don't work on your weaknesses, they become the hindrances that ruin all your relationships moving forward in life. When you've embraced singleness, you become stronger. You become so strong to where your love doesn't fill me up. I overflow with love that comes from within. This is self-love. This is the path to self-love. Intrapersonal relationships is your path to self-love. Self-love is the path towards loving others. It's more important for you to love yourself than it is for you to love others. I know that sounds narcissistic. It sounds very selfish, and maybe this is selfish, but this is a biblical type of selfishness. A selfishness that was demanded by God. Jesus talked about it. There's 669 laws in the Old Testament. You thought there was 10 commandments, there's 669. Spoiler alert. And Jesus and his disciples were all sitting around. I think it's in the book of Matthew, Matthew 22. I'm not great at quoting the Bible, so I might be wrong. But they're all sitting around, chilling, having a powwow. And they asked Jesus, so, out of all these 669 laws, which one's the best? Which one? Which one is the best? Well, Jesus answered, and he answers in his own way. You can't pigeonhole Jesus into giving the answer that you want him to give. He gave an answer, and he didn't just give one rule. He was asked which out of the 669 laws were the best, so he gave two instead of just one. And Jesus said the first one is love God with all your heart and soul, and that was the first one. And the second one was love your neighbor as yourself. So if you love your neighbor as yourself, and you don't love yourself, you're self-loathing. How does that work? Do you hate your neighbor as much as you hate yourself? Do you afford your neighbor the same type of hatred that you give to yourself, the same type of bad treatment? You have to learn to love yourself. If you want to properly respect your neighbor and love your neighbor according to God, you have to love yourself first. You are a creation of God. We're made in the image of God, and we're tasked to honor all of his creations equally. So you honor yourself in the same way that you honor others. You have to start with self. So when someone says, I love you, sure, you can say, I love you back. Nothing wrong with that. But you can ask them, especially in the courtship phases of the relationship, if this is the first time that that person has ever said, I love you. And that feels good to hear that for the first time. But you might want to think rationally, not let that get you all punch drunk. Some guys get punch drunk over that kind of talk. And women know this. No, you don't just say, I love you back. Oh, I love you too, sweetie. No, you can ask her, do you love you? You say you love me, but do you love you? That's so important. Do not start a relationship with a woman or a person who doesn't love themselves. Avoid people who are self-loathing, self-hating, and self-destructive. In fact, don't ever ask anyone if they love you. Don't ever ask that question ever. Because you love yourself. So what is self-love? You might be asking. You hear this a lot. Self-love, self-love. What the hell is it? It's not masturbation. That's not self-love. In fact, we could make an argument that masturbation is self-harm. No, self-love is a result of self-discovery. This is part of the Mind, Body, and Soul program. And self-love is a result of self-source. Your self-source is learning your source, learning your origin. Not just historically of where you come from, but what type of person you are. Self-love is a result of self-worth, learning that your value isn't tied to others. You don't give me a value. Your self-love is a result of self-esteem. Self-worth and self-esteem are similar, but they're slightly different. Self-love is a result of self-concept. This is how you picture yourself, how you imagine yourself. You know, you can tell when somebody doesn't love themselves. One way you can tell is that they're wrapped with insecurities. You ever see these guys that always take their wives shopping with them? Those are some sorry suckers, man. The type of guy who needs his wife to approve everything he wears. Oh, well, I don't know. Let me see if my wife likes it. I can't buy these shoes or this watch or this cologne or this jacket. Let me see if my wife likes it. If she doesn't like it, I won't wear it. You're a sucker. It's a sign of self-hatred. A red flag of self-hatred is a guy who takes his wife shopping with him everywhere. You can't figure out how to make a decision on your own and decide that you're an individual on your own. And if she doesn't like it, too bad. I like it. Bottom line with self-love is you have to learn to stop speaking negative of yourself. Jesus never spoke negative of himself, ever. Have a high image of yourself. Be self-confident. Have self-respect. Be self-assured. So much so that you're intimidating to others. Now, that doesn't mean that you're a bully or a jerk or mean. But self-assurance can absolutely be intimidating to an emasculated weakling. Be self-assured. Be self-assertive. You're allowed to have boundaries. You're allowed to speak up, and I suggest that you do, but don't be pushy or rude. Have self-motivation. That's incredibly attractive. This is leadership qualities. A leader can self-motivate. He doesn't need others to motivate him. He can do this himself. Have self-value. You don't lower yourself to others, ever. You raise people up. And if you can't raise them up, you go on, you move on. You're self-giving. You can have self-affirmation where you don't need the love of someone else to exist. You can love yourself. You can be self-affirming. You can tell yourself, I did good today. You don't need other people to tell you that. These attaboys, good job, kid. You don't need that. You're a grown man. And the last one is self-forgiveness, self-forgiving. That's the hardest one. You can conquer some of this stuff. You can get on top of some of this stuff. Not only will you be a leader, but you'll be so far ahead of most everyone out there. It's all food for thought. Have a good day.